If you're in the membership, join us live on Zoom. You are more than welcome to show up and chat directly to your animal heroes. And Chelsea Kent's one of my animal heroes. So I met Chelsea at Judy Morgan's event this year, 2025, in Florida, and got the chance to sit next to her. And I thought she was like some 24-year-old girl. And then she wasn't feeling her best that day, but she was still amazing. And I started like picking her brain on stuff, and she had an answer for everything. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw some quirky things out there. And she was like, "Ba-da-da-da-da." And so I was just like, dang, this girl knows her stuff. She's no fake echo chamber on the online forums. She is the formulators. So, Chelsea, you are the creator of Solutions Pet. You are a formulator co-founder, and you're not probably 24 years old, even though you look it. Are you?
44.
She looks this good in real life too. It's not like just lighting.
Did you say
And
42?
44.
44.
Holy crap. Yeah, you look good.
Thank you.
I would have thought you were like 25.
I know. I was just like, obviously, with your background, you are not 24 years old. She is also the founder of Heroes Pet. She lives in Littleton, Colorado, and co-owner of Parsley Pet, the hair tissue mineral assessment, mineral assessment.
Metals too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've worked with all the top pet holistic influencers, Rodney Habib, Karen Becker, Dr. Royal. Like, there's nobody that you haven't influenced and associated with. It's jaw
I
dropping.
haven't worked directly with Anna Helm Bjorkman yet. She's
Not
on
yet.
my radar though. If
Well,
she
let
ever
me
needs
know when
anything,
you
I'm there.
do that, because I would love to have her on as a guest.
Yeah.
She is really amazing. Chelsea, welcome to the Holistic Animal Insights membership today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me how you got started, since you look so young and fresh. I want to know all your secrets.
Well, I accidentally ended up in the pet industry, and it happened to be at a time that I was having some health problems of my own. And so, I think that's really what pushed me into the holistic world, is that my own health problems, it was like, no matter how many specialists I saw, they just had the most ludicrous answers and just no deep dives and no like, let's figure out why this happened. And so, it just happened to coincide with I had started working at a holistic pet supply store. And I think that's honestly one of the best places to learn, because, like, when you're learning on your own, you can come up with ideas of, like, this is something that's really interesting and I'm going to go research that. But when you're working in a pet supply store, you constantly have people that are asking you questions and you're like, well, I don't know. And I wouldn't have thought to try to research that. So you do that all day, every day for years and years and years. And you just end up with a very wide view of all of the things that are out there to know. And I'm constantly learning. And it's funny because I got into this industry about 25 years ago. I started Heroes when I was 25, so about 20 years ago. And I felt, probably after like maybe 8 or 10 years, like I really had a handle on things and had a lot of knowledge. And the more I learn, the less I feel like I know. So now people are always like, you know so much. And I'm like, no, nature knows so much. And what I know most now is that we will never know enough to really be fully in the know. And so we really have to trust nature. So I have become very much a purist. Originally, I started out as like, how do we clean up chemicals? Like, how do we not have chemicals in our shampoos and our lotions and our makeups and all of these kinds of things? And that seemed kind of purist, but it was still like this man-made product that has isolated ingredients in it. and it's more natural than something that's made out of actual chemicals. And now I'm like, we don't even know all of the bad things that are caused by isolating natural things. So, you know,
Right.
the
And
more you learn,
that's where
the less
drugs
you
come
know.
from. Splitting chemistry becomes pharmacology.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
there's where we leave and mesh and mess with the balance of nature. Because I think everything
Mhm.
was made perfectly in its own state, as long as it has the right soil and environment that it was like I like to think of it as divinely inspired. Like
Mhm.
it was created with a purpose, and everything on the planet has a purpose in nature.
And everything works together to make those things work. And even if you don't have the ideal soil and you don't have the ideal water and blah, 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 there are still things that nature can do to help to balance stuff out. And on the condition that you're not just only having like one thing all the time, like you can have the best potato in the world, but you can't only eat potatoes and you're healthy, right? And that's true for anything. That's even true for herbs and any kind of supplements. And so, you know, as long as we are accessing all of the diversity that nature offers, and even to the point of like, say that you're taking um alfalfa supplement, like pick a thing. If you're using the same brand all the time and they're using the same sourcing all the time, even that's not necessarily enough rotation. So we just really need to take advantage of the fact that the earth really wants us to have a lot of diversity in our environment and our intake and our seasons and all of those things. So I
So
think that's
when
really important.
I first started my holistic business, I was in the horse space, and I would literally go to horse properties and work for people on site. And I would look at the flora that was growing and ask them, does your horse eat this, or does your horse eat that? And they're like, we've never seen that plant ever in the 20 years we have lived here. And I was like reverse engineering the horse's needs. And I noticed that the planet actually provided for the vibration of the disorder that was on the property. And
Mhm.
I've run that by some other people who were like from Africa, and they were like, you're the first American that's ever said that to us. But I know that I'm sure you already have jumped way ahead of that.
Well, even looking at like poison ivy, it doesn't really grow in areas where the forest isn't trying to protect itself. Like it's indicative that the forest is struggling a little bit. So yeah, that's just one reflection of what you just said.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's
Mm-hmm.
super fun. This is why I love talking to you. So
Oh,
you have
thanks.
your herb blending center right behind you, and you have like stacks of um filed cabinets and your bulk herbs and all of that. Where do you buy your bulk herbs from?
A variety of places, and it's, you know, changed here and there over the years. So I'm always trying to optimize, and you know, there are some places where they might have great sourcing, but not enough. And so have to get a variety of different sources for things. And sometimes you don't know about certain sources until after something is out into the world. So I do get a lot of things from Mountain Rose Herbs and um Star West, is that
West.
what it is? The
Yeah, it's
botanical,
local to
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
can drive to it and pick up my order, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But they
And then
got
since
bought out.
starting Solutions, oh yeah, yep. But since starting Solutions, we've managed to get the farmers to grow some of the herbs, and my dad actually wild harvests certain things that I wouldn't really feel good about buying anywhere else, just because they're plants that are really over harvested. So I know it's not over harvested when my 70-year-old father is backpacking into a forest and only carrying out what he can carry.
That's amazing. So it's a whole family affair. Like your parents are into herbs and natural remedies.
So my mom and I co-own Heroes Pets and Solutions Pet Products, and then we decided that we wanted to make some tinctures, and my dad is like just kind of a natural engineer. Like he's really smart, and you're like, can you do this? And he just figures it out. So I was like, I should ask him if he can do tinctures. So he was like, yeah, I can do them. And also, I wild harvest all these things. I'm like, well, heck, let's do that. So
That's
yeah, just kind of
amazing.
dragging everybody in. Yeah, and my sister does all the artwork, and yeah,
That's so
family.
beautiful, Chelsea. Who
Thanks.
can say that? That's amazing.
Yeah,
And
and we all work really well together because nobody like overlaps on anything that anybody else does.
well, and it sounds like everybody's very passion focused.
Very
So,
much.
so as long as people have a common denominator, people unite instead of fight.
Yep. I see the question, are the tinctures made with glycerin? So currently the only tinctures that we have are made with alcohol, and it's just because it's the best extraction. So as we come out with more tinctures, if there are any of them that would be optimized specifically with glycerin, then that's what we would use. But so far we haven't found that with any of them that we have.
So when you are creating a product or a tincture, how do you test it? How do you know when it's capable to release on the market?
Well, fortunately, there is a lot of research that's out there to help us out with like, anything that we haven't really worked with before, like tinctures, like what is the best extraction method for this one thing and this thing, and should we use heat and should we not use heat and everything like that. But on a broader scale, I actually started mixing herbs about 12 years ago for my store. And it was ultimately because I have an enormous supplement section, like huge. And I was constantly finding myself in this position of like, you need these supplements to deal with this condition. And people would be like, I'll take this one. Like, I'm not actually trying to sell you stuff. Like, you need these 10 things because they all do different things. And so either people would only buy one and not get good outcomes because it wasn't everything they needed, or they would buy everything and not use it all because it was too complicated, so they wouldn't get good outcomes. So everywhere that there was not anything that existed that put everything together and didn't have a whole bunch of fillers and junk in there that didn't need to be in there, I just made it. So I actually have a lot more herbal blends than what we sell with solutions. I started moving the blends over to solutions just because the farmers, like when we started solutions, I wasn't sure that all of them would be allowed to do the frozen just because of the circumstances of how we started. And so I was like, well, this would be a good thing for them to all have income. So I moved them over, not even really thinking hardly anybody would buy them but me. And they've gone over really well. So I actually have like 12 years of feedback on them, and a lot of them have been adjusted a little bit here and there over the years because of feedback.
That is really cool. So do you partner your Parsley Pet with your tinctures?
Um, I would say not necessarily specifically with Parsley Pet. There are a couple of things that over time I may or may not do that with. If there is a product that's out there that's good, then I'm like, we'll just use that. So, for example, for dogs that have Addison's, licorice root, if it's not deglycerinated, will actually boost cortisol production. And their most licorice root is deglycerinated, and so finding one that's not refined is a little bit difficult. But Animal Essentials makes one. It's a glycerin based tincture, so I don't need to make that. That's a good product.
It's
So
exciting.
if
And
that weren't
we love
available,
Greg Tilford.
yeah. And if they didn't make that, then sure, I would make something because I recommend it all the time and it wouldn't be accessible. But there's room for everybody. I don't need to make it all.
That's how I feel too, is everybody has their superpower
Yeah.
and there is room and there's so many pet owners
Mm-hmm.
that there's enough business for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
also, if the business is kind of spread around across multiple different businesses, then you're also not stressing your sources. So they're not going to have to degrade their quality to be able to meet your needs.
That is really big wisdom. That's obviously a word of you who has had to source multiple different types of things, because I know during COVID, I make some blends for horses and I couldn't get some of those herbs at all. And between Star West and Mountain Rose, like specifically wormwood, it was the same Latin derived wormwood, but they were so bizarrely different. They didn't mix the same. It just ruined the whole recipe. So it was a big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's beneficial and sometimes it's not. Like holy basil, there's three different kinds of holy basil, and really the difference is the state at which they're dried versus, like, say you have black walnut, that can be a variety of different colors, and the shade is actually determined by the freshness, which you want it less fresh.
Well,
Be
it's
more fuzzy.
toxic, right? Like, tell me about black walnut, because I err to caution on black walnut. It's really toxic for horses, and I've heard it's toxic to dogs, but not cats. So tell me.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to categorize just only that one. I would say that there's a plethora of pretty toxic herbs out there. But if you look at nature and like what wild animals do, a lot of wild animals, they'll use these same plants with these toxic compounds for, in this type of a case, for pests, right? So I always say you have three options if you're dealing with pests. So any kind of worm or protozoa, parasite, anything like that. So one option is you don't do anything. That's not at all a good option. Two is you use herbs that have toxic compounds in them. And three is you use man-made chemicals that have toxic compounds. So you kind of have to pick your poison. And
Literally.
yeah, literally. And the most important thing is that you understand the threshold for toxicity. So everything has that hormetic level where it becomes toxic, even water. Like, what was that, like 5 years ago or something? There was some kid that drank so much water that they died.
Yeah.
So everything has a threshold for toxicity. So as long as you're under the threshold and you understand, sometimes some other variables. So like if you have a pet that already has elevated liver enzymes, then you wouldn't want to give that if you didn't give it in tandem with something to support the liver, and you wouldn't want to give it long term, but you also can't do nothing. So sometimes you just have to fight multiple battles at the same time.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that in the dewormer space, since you're talking about one of my favorite topics, is different products kill different worms. And so because of TikTok, people are like, ivermectin, fenben, ivermectin, fenben. I'm like, that doesn't even hit your flukes and your tapes. And you guys shut up. I don't know. I'm like, stop. So what's your answer to tapes and flukes, Chelsea?
I guess that it just depends on the situation. Honestly, there are too many variables with a number of things. And I mean, I've even had scenarios with, like with our parasite-free blends for solutions, we have the tincture that's less potent, so you can give that to cats and puppies and things, and then the powder that's more potent. And there are times where really, really bad parasitic infections don't clear up with just that. So you just need more time and you need to kind of layer it. So I think there are times that you can use something like the stronger parasite-free powder. And then there are times where you're just going to have to layer things in. So I have seen tapeworms, especially, clear very rapidly with the parasite-free powder. And I've seen some cases where it's like, man, I can't even imagine how heavy of a load is in there because it's just still going like a month and a half later.
Oh my gosh. Chelsea, what do you do to clean up the residual damage?
Like, mm, I guess I need you to be more clear on the
If
question.
so, if you had a massive parasitic
Mm-hmm.
infestation,
Mm-hmm.
and partially I'm asking this because we do iridology in this group. So we
Mm-hmm.
do equine, canine, and feline iridology, and you can see indicator lines for parasite loads in the iris. And when they
Mm-hmm.
deworm, those lines go away, but they leave a lot of damage. Some of these animals are so infested that there's scar tissue, there's like leaky gut, there's like
Mm-hmm.
some, it can tear you up.
Yeah.
So, what are
And
your
then,
thoughts?
like we just discussed, like just doing a treatment alone can also stress the liver. So, yeah, my number one default to anything is raw milk. Like mammals were designed to have raw milk during the most demanding period of their life in a time when the digestive system really doesn't have the ability to tolerate complex foods. So, switching to just a raw milk diet for a period of time to give it an opportunity to have a break from digestion so that it can just do metabolic processes and just heal. I think that that's really beneficial. And then if they're really rough, then I think homeopathics are good. So for scar tissue, thiocinaminum is fantastic. Um, yeah, and then doing liver support, which I always recommend a rotation on that because you, just like you were saying, not every herb can treat everything. So, like just saying, let's do milk thistle, it's not necessarily enough to support the liver. So, maybe doing that in tandem with other things and in rotation with other things. Gelatin can be really good for healing the gut as well. So it also depends on the individual because some of them are just in a better state where they have a higher tolerance for that damage. They can resolve themselves a little quicker, and some of them need a lot of layered support.
What's your thought on apple pectin? Do you use it?
I don't use it. We do have the regulator, which has some similar qualities to it. I think that it could be valuable. I guess that it would come down again to the condition. Um, if you knew specifically that you were dealing with something that one thing was beneficial for, great. I think that the regulator that we have is a really good option for, like, I don't even know which thing is causing diarrhea or constipation. I'm just going to use this, and it's a really safe blend that you can do a very small amount or a massive amount. I've actually had humans, as a matter of fact, even at the Dr. Judy thing, there was one person that I'm fairly close with that she was like, my stomach's really not happy with me. I got to go to the bathroom. And she had like a quarter teaspoon of the regulator and it totally cleared it up. And then I've had times like my last dog was a boxer. And there was like 3 times in her about 15-year life that she had hemorrhagic gastroenteritis, literally like nothing coming out but blood, like not even poop. And I just gave her like a tablespoon heaping as high as I could get it with just raw milk and parasite free for 24 hours and like never had to take her to the vet for it. Like massive amounts of regulator. So, it kind of depends.
So, Chelsea, I love that you have some milk options. Like when you say raw milk, you're not just saying cow milk or goat milk, you also have sheep milk,
Mm-hmm.
which I think you're the only company out there that has sheep milk. What's the
Yep.
difference between sheep, goat, and cow?
So cow milk molecules are about 5 times larger than goat milk molecules. So with cow milk, um, if it's raw, then it can still be beneficial, but it can be kind of hard to digest. And so, consider cows have a couple stomachs. They can put a little more effort into that than humans can, and dogs and cats. So I think it's okay, but not necessarily great for all pets or if you're trying to deal with something like leaky gut. So with the goat milk, it tends to be easier to absorb. Cow and goat milk are both fairly low in protein and fat relative to dog and cat milk. And sheep milk is actually the closest to dog and cat milk out of the herbivores. And this is a really strange statement, but basically sheep milk is drier. Like the moisture content is lower and they produce less of it. And that makes it so that it's more concentrated in proteins and fats, which is more similar to dogs and cats.
I have sheep in my on my ranch back here, and I never thought of milking them, but now I am. They're super
Yeah,
feral. My sheep are like beyond feral, but
that's funny.
that's so fascinating. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. Are you entertaining doing any other milks? Because I'm always like, somebody needs to do camel milk. What are you,
Actually, funny, just this morning in our staff meeting, we were talking about camel milk.
there you go. It's confirmation, Chelsea. Because all these dogs that are being nourished with goat milk, a lot of them are having toxicity to it because people love to give their animals milk. Animals love milk. And then all of a sudden they build up a resistance to it. So I tell everybody about your sheep milk when my clients' dogs start having problems with goat milk. And I'm like, just roll over to the sheep. But having camel would be a really amazing opportunity. What are your thoughts about that?
So, it is very expensive, like very. So there's that. The fat profile on it is a little bit different, and there is actually some scientific research in humans that shows that camel milk is good for autism. So I do think it's really beneficial for neurologic and brain health. So there's some, just a different enough profile that I think it could be beneficial in some cases. And certain breeds like Rottweilers actually have much, much higher fat content in their milk than other breeds of dogs. So there could be some breed specific benefits as well. Outside of that, it's a little bit more of a musky flavor. So not everybody loves it. The sheep milk is honestly, even with people that don't really like milk and hate goat milk, they tend to absolutely love sheep milk. So if you have pets that are snubbing the goat milk, then I think that the sheep milk is a good option. And I'm not sure if camel milk would be.
I have never thought of the actual animals, like you're saying, Rottweiler milk is different than other breed milks. That's
Mhm.
never been on my radar.
Mhm.
So that is something new I never considered. Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's an interesting thing to really think about because, like, if you think about cancer rates, for example, so Rottweilers more than any other breed, and by the way, I'm not a specialist in Rottweilers. This is just really interesting to me. So, more than any other breed, when you castrate them, they're more likely to get osteosarcoma and really rapidly. And fats and hormones play such a symbiotic role with each other, so the concept of them needing higher fat in their diet than a lot of other breeds, and then you take away their hormones and generally feed them too low of fat in addition, and it results in a cancer. I'm not sure what the correlation versus causation is there, but I imagine that some research would probably show some pretty interesting stuff.
You guys, can you see why I brought Chelsea? Why I fought and badgered Chelsea for months, saying, please, please, please be on our membership because you just have some really amazing information that I've never heard in my whole life. What else? What else do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Parsley Pet or solutions? Like,
Sure. I
where do
saw
we
there was a
go? You know
question, but I didn't
everything.
get to read it. What was the question?
Let me see. And somebody's online on Facebook found out about solutions from the owner of a local natural focus pet store in Texas. The owner loves it and has her 5 dogs on it. So,
Oh,
yay,
yeah, yay.
good to know. There are pet companies that have camel milk, but the sourcing from them is her concern.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and you could actually probably do camel milk treats if you didn't want to do like cartons of camel milk, and then that way it's smaller dosage. Just
Maybe.
FYI.
Yeah.
You'll call it after me, the poppy camel.
Yeah.
Have you
So
ever
do
ridden a
we.
camel? Side note, this is a total side note.
Yes, when I was little at a Renaissance festival back when they had animals.
So their little tiny like heads with those long necks is the most bizarre Jurassic experience of my life. And they're like, bleh. And you're like, is it dying? And they're like, no, they just make noises like that. It's the weirdest thing ever. So
Yeah.
camels are a trip. We're getting asked, Kathleen, saying, do you ship to Canada?
So we don't ship to Canada, but if you reach out to rawsomepets.net, then I think she might ship to Canada.
Okay, so she's
She's
a
out of
story.
Chicago.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
So solutions, you developed solutions out of a need. Is that true?
Mhm. Yeah, very much. I did not want to do manufacturing in any capacity whatsoever. The universe bullied me into it, which I'm not complaining. Just saying, like, it wasn't on my radar. And actually, I had helped get Parsley Pet started as a company. Like, the guy that started it, Matt Rowe, he lives in my area and knew that I did a lot of stuff with laboratory things. And so we kind of collaborated on how to find a good HTMA lab. And then he ran with that and did his thing. And I recommended it a lot. And there was a point at which I could tell that the company was being a little bit neglected. Like he had some other big things going on in life. And I just was like, if you ever want to sell the company, I would love to have your data. So my biggest interest with it is the data, and there's so much stuff that we believe to be true about how nutrition impacts pet health, but we don't necessarily have proof that that's true. And that seemed to me like one of the best ways to find that out. So it took a little while, but he was like, yeah, I would like to sell it. So we ended up buying it, and it was like not even a month later that I started Solutions, and I would not have done both
Oh,
of those at the same time.
did you sleep? No wonder why you're like fatigued and exhausted all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah. It was an effort to get it going, but there was some framework already there. Like all of the farmers that had been working with Answers before, they were about to leave the industry, and they had actually purchased a whole bunch of equipment and not yet procured it. And so we just had to kind of swoop in and like rescue all of the foundation that they had started and just grab it and be like, nah, here it is. Just use it. And you know, they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a really long time. So it was easy to transition into, okay, these are the recipes, and like everything could be done remotely. So yes, it was a lot of work and a lot of negotiating. And my sister always says that I am like an Acme Roadrunner and I just dodge anvils for a living. And that's pretty much what I did. And so I just feel like my contribution to Solutions is primarily content and educational support. And outside of that, it was just being willing to stick my head in a very expensive guillotine and telling them to go and do their thing and taking my mom and putting her head in there with me.
Wow.
So
Well,
I'm
thank
lucky
you.
that
Thank you
she's
for
also
doing
very
that.
brave.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I don't know how much we can actually talk about that legally. So I know there was some sketchy
Yeah.
stuff about that.
Yeah.
Not on
We're getting
solution
close.
side, you guys, not
Yeah.
solution is good.
Yeah. We are getting close to being in a place where it shouldn't really matter a whole lot. And ultimately, it was like, what, for me, my experience of why I felt obliged to do this is because, like, I had been in the industry a long time. I started Heroes Pets in 2007. In about 2015, 2016, I started to burn out a little bit. And I was like, I just can't be in this box all the time. Like retail is a box and you just go and you live in the box and you never leave. And I got to get out of here sometimes. And Roxanne Stone, that at the time was with Answers, she was like, well, you should go to AFCO meetings, and got me in touch with Susan Thixton. And I was like, oh, but I started
I
going,
mean, what a overhaul of an education on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so much. So I started going to those meetings in 2017, and it was a really good escape from the box. And it really opened up my mind to all of these things that I had not researched before. And also, again, back to like, there are things that we think that we know, but it's only part of the story. And going to these AFCO meetings really teaches you so much more than you thought. So, like when I got into the industry, one of the first things that I learned is that you can legally figure out loopholes for ways to get euthanized pets into pet food. And I was like, well, it can't get any worse than that. And so then I started going to AFCO meetings, and I swear to you, every time I open that AFCO book, I find something that's even more horrifying than that. So,
Wait,
yeah,
Chelsea.
yeah, it's
So
so bad.
I mean, we knew that there was some phenobarb scares
Mhm.
in pet food, but they were literally making a big effort to sneak that in.
Mm-hmm. And there are
Oh, I
companies
didn't
that
know it
still
was
do it.
intentional at all.
Mhm. Yep.
That's disgusting.
It's
So,
so bad.
so I kind of feel like I call it my cat conspiracy, my cat conspiracy, I guess you could call it. Is I feel like cat food causes kidney problems and it just feeds the beast. Like there's a lot of cats on the planet, so why not just make cat food that's going to kill them and like just keep it rolling like that. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's true, but it seems so. I had a client who fed cat food to her dog and he got a kidney issue and I was like, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
What are your
Well, Karen Becker one time said, this quote is fantastic. She said that dogs are more tolerant to nutritional abuse. So I wouldn't actually say that cat food is any worse. It's just that dogs are more tolerant to nutritional abuse. They're scavengers and cats are not. So, like other examples in the AFCO book, fish oil is actually defined as either oil extracted from fish or cannery waste. And there's no definition for cannery waste. It doesn't even say what kind of cannery or what the waste is. And then the primary source of fat in most pet foods is actually used restaurant grease, like French fry fryer grease. So those kinds of things, of course, are really damaging.
And so, hence all the pancreatitis, all the inflammatory foods. That is shocking.
It
That's
gets
so
so much
disgusting.
worse too. So, like going into the AFCO meetings, my experience as a retailer was like every time that I would ask a really good company to do something better, every time they would be like, well, I don't think that's possible, but I guess that company is doing it, being Answers at the time. And it was like the standard was there for the gold standard foods. So when all of these people were about to leave the industry, I was like, this industry can't tolerate not having a gold standard for the good foods because there's already so few good foods and the industry's already so bad. So it wasn't so much about losing a brand because I immediately kicked that out of my store, which was a huge hit for me and my business. It wasn't about that. It was about making sure that everybody still had these same people to look up to and be like, if they can do it, we can do better.
Right.
So
Well, and
that's
I
why I
love
did.
that you guys actually teamed up together to bail these farmers out who made a huge financial obligation to provide for the previous situation.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to you,
Thank you.
not just having a individually selfish focus, but for a
Mhm.
global awareness and focus. Can anybody go to an AFCO meeting?
Yes. It's $500 to get in, but yes, anybody can go.
Well, it might be. I mean, I write it off, so
Yeah.
it might be.
Actually, I think it's cheaper just as a consumer, and it's cheaper if you aren't like if you're in a position where you're not able to engage with it. So like if I go in, I want to be able to go up to the microphone and give them a hard time. So it costs me more money.
Got to pay to play, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your specialty at Solutions Pet? Like, is it all fermented foods or is some of it not fermented?
So everything that we have that's frozen is fermented and or cultured. Yeah. So you have that safety aspect to it. And there's a couple of things to mention about that. So fermentation, by default, people think, well, if it's fermented, then it's going to be high histamine and it's going to cause problems with allergies. There are tiers of fermenting, just like anything. So if you have something that's fermented correctly and it's fresh, then it barely raises the histamine level. So it's only when it starts to age that it becomes really high histamine. So like roadkill would be very high histamine. Aged cheeses and summer sausages, those kinds of things are very high in histamine, but you can make fermented foods that are very low histamine. So there's that. Also, fermentation obviously produces a lot of beneficial probiotic bacteria. So you don't have to be using an additional supplement if you're doing the fermentation. You're actually getting way, way more value out of a fermented product. So the expiration date on a shelf-stable probiotic or enzyme blend, it actually is designed where it has to meet whatever number it says on the package on the day of expiration. So when it's brand new, it's higher, and then those die, and then it hits the expiration. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that you've dropped below what it says on the label for the potency of it, and it just keeps dying. Whereas with a fermented or a cultured food, it just keeps growing and proliferating. You get more beneficial bacteria, which also competes with pathogens. So you're able to basically temperature abuse our products and it just gets better. Whereas with other products, if you had a pet that had like a compromised immune system or something, then that could be problematic because they might not tolerate even a low level pathogen, and a fermented food is going to compete with that and prevent that growth.
What is different between fermented and cultured? I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, I know. It's very similar. Fermentation would be when it's cultured to the point that the pH has dropped below 4.5. So that's a full ferment. So like you can culture something and just not let it get to that pH. So like say that you had a cultured milk product, you could just leave it on your counter for a couple of days and it would turn into a ferment. It would also get a lot more tart.
And it's totally safe because fermentation is its own preservation.
To a degree. So yes, but also you can make it so it's not safe. And that's part of why more companies don't do it. Like, say that we bought mechanically separated meat, pink slime from McDonald's, right? The same stuff they use for McDonald's. And then we fermented that. The pathogen load in that is already so high that there's no amount of fermentation that's going to outcompete that. So you have to start with a clean product in order for fermentation to work, and it's more expensive to buy a clean product. So again, that's why a lot of companies can't actually get away with fermentation.
Chelsea, I'm so grossed out right now. Do they use that in dog food? Pink slime.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So
I was assuming that. Oh my gosh,
well,
I'm
I would
like
say
tasting it.
pink slime is actually a higher quality source. So if you go to truthaboutpetfood.com and on the search type in Google Earth, then you can actually see Google Earth images of rendering plants and you can see how meats for kibble are stored. It is nearly impossible. I literally know one company that can get their meats refrigerated because they don't tell their supplier they're using it for kibble. So they won't reveal their supplier, because if their supplier finds out, it'll literally be left in a parking lot until it's ready to be used. So getting pink slime is actually what a lot of the raw food companies do. because you can just sterilize it with like high pressure pasteurization, or you can do gently cooked or whatever, which it's human grade. I mean, it is better. I still think it's gross, so I would never use it in solutions. Like we get whole, amazing, beautiful cuts of meat, but there are still tiers of quality just because it's a raw food or fresh food or whatever. Yeah, doesn't necessarily mean it's fantastic.
I'm like blown away. We've had Susan Thixton on the membership like year one, and I think I was almost in tears doing the whole thing. I was just like this the whole time. And now you're doing it again. I'm so grossed out. And I didn't know raw food companies did that too. And then they just HPP it.
Yeah. It's typically called mechanically deboned or mechanically separated. So I like if you ask a company, do you use a mechanically deboned or mechanically separated meat, then that would be the same thing as pink slime. So it's pretty easy to flag it if you ask them. And regarding the statement, human grade means nothing, I would say human grade is a fantastic baseline standard from which you improve upon. Like that should be like the floor, right? Not the ceiling. So start there because it is better. It is so much better, but you need to do better than that, right? Because McDonald's is human grade. I don't want to feed that to my dog either.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm like in awe. So let's say you have a dog that does have some allergies or mast cell or something going on. Is it safe to feed a low fermented food?
Yeah. Yeah, and we
And
actually have
beneficial?
some, yeah, and beneficial. We have restorative diet protocols, so it's under the resources tab, and we even have like a little feeding calculator that's specific to those. So if you had severe allergies or mast cell, I would recommend the allergy and leaky gut protocol because fundamentally, and then here we'll jump over to parsley.
I was just gonna say, I bet there's a heavy metal component to a lot
There
of this.
can be. Yeah, so not just heavy metals. So Um, first off, to metabolize histamine, you have to have the right components. So your body will produce diamine oxidase, DAO, and histamine and methyltransferase, which are enzymes to break down histamine and metabolize it. In order to be able to produce those enzymes, it needs correct levels of calcium, methylated B6, and copper primarily. So heavy metals, like toxicity, vitamin D deficiency, and elevated cortisol and low thyroid and high pituitary function. All of those things will actually cause a depletion of calcium, and then you end up with allergies, which also ends up with poor fat metabolism. So same mechanisms there. And then also heavy metals can cause problems with methylation of your B vitamins. So you can give your pet B vitamins all day long, but they can't actually use them. You might as well have fed them plastic. So fermentation will produce B vitamins. It will produce amino acids and things like that. So you have to give them the right tools to be able to tolerate the allergens, be able to, it's not even necessarily an allergen. Like they might not be allergic, they're just not able to metabolize it. So you give them the tools and then they can metabolize it. So this is why I'm actually never a fan of just restriction in the diet. Like taking out ingredients that they're allergic to is a band-aid to the problem. It might be helpful temporarily, but the goal is that you resolve the metabolic issue that's making them so that they can't tolerate that thing, because nutrients are restricted when you restrict foods.
Right. And I think what you're trying to also say is if you have an allergic situation, there's a deeper rooted health concern that the body's not doing its job right.
Yep. And if you don't identify what that problem is, and all you do is avoid the stimulus by removing the things that the body is reacting to, then you end up turning an acute problem into a chronic problem. Like if you don't resolve high cortisol, eventually they end up with Cushing's. If you don't resolve low thyroid, eventually they're going to end up with allergies and, poor fat metabolism. So they'll have sebaceous cysts and fatty lipomas and pancreatitis. And, at some point they'll end up with tremors and seizures if it's really severe, especially if you have multiple things going on at one time. So, like, you can cause more damage by just removing things that they're stimulated by that cause allergy symptoms and not looking to find whatever the root cause is and fixing that.
So with the Parsley Pet package, you send in the tissue, the hair sample, and you guys run your process over it, and then you get back like toxicities, deficiencies, and normal. Because all the other hair metal testing that I've seen, or hair mineral assessment, there's no normal.
Well, so there's two kinds of hair tests. So there's quantitative HTMA and there's bioresonance HTMA. So what I do with Parsley Pet is quantitative. And what that means is basically they take the hair sample and grind it into a powder, and they're testing the milligram and microgram levels of each one of the minerals or heavy metals that's in 100 grams. I mean, they don't need 100 grams, but like per 100 grams. Versus bioresonance, they basically determine each individual food or ingredient or external allergen as one frequency, and then they take that frequency and load it into a machine, and a laser shoots the sample with that frequency. And if a different frequency bounces back, they say there's a sensitivity. And the more dramatically different that frequency is, the greater the sensitivity. Now, I struggle with that because if you've ever actually seen like Masaru Emoto's the water studies, like
Yes.
frequencies change. I don't know how you could apply one frequency to one food product. Like if I were to test the frequency of milk in Pennsylvania versus New Zealand versus a feedlot, they're not going to be the same. So I'm not really sure how that works, and I have yet to manage to actually find any research behind that. So if we're just talking about quantitative HTMA and you're just looking at the levels, yes, there's no one thing that's right for everybody, and they are pretty difficult to read. So there are a lot of companies out there that don't actually give you a summary of like, this is what you're looking at. And I don't see a lot of value to that because it takes a trained eye to understand them. Like you can have a dog that has 6 different things in range, but they're only in range because there's a problem. So like say that your pet has leaky gut or malabsorption. So everything is low, but they have inflammation. So you have potentially sodium, copper, and zinc that spike into range, but it's because there's inflammation. And you end up with selenium and chromium that are in range, but they're actually only spiked because there's hormone imbalances. And sulfur is in range, but that's spiked because the body's breaking down and literally eating its own tissues. So you get a number of things in range, but it's not meaningful as far as like, are they getting enough in their diet? So you really have to understand what you're looking at to understand what the profile really means.
So Chelsea, if like I sent in this dog's hair sample, do you assess it with me? Like who interprets it? Do I need a vet or do you do that?
So with Parsley Pet, we send an interpretation, and we also take an intake form that's really comprehensive. So say, for example, zinc is really abnormally high. We can look at your intake form and be like, oh, you're supplementing with zinc. Knock that off, super simple. And then sometimes it's like, I've had a number of scenarios where it's like there's something seriously going on in this environment. And because we get information in the intake form, we can see where the person lives and do some research on the area and be like, these are some things that you should look into. Like one time we had one 2-year-old dog that had a profile that I was like, this one is super weird. And I did research on their area, and these people lived about a half hour downstream from a nuclear reactor that happened to have a leak the year before. And I was like, you should probably have your whole family tested.
So
So,
the radioactive nucleotide spiked
mhm. In a
and
2-year-old dog.
yeah.
So, and I had one, well, two, family, two dogs in Hong Kong not too long ago. And one of them had a really normal profile, and the other one had really high rubidium and sodium and potassium. So that dog, I was like, when you go to the beach with your dogs, is this one dog playing with balls all the time? And so what's happening with that dog is that it's getting so much beach dirt in its mouth all the time that it's elevating rubidium to an unhealthy level. So it can be something simple like don't play ball on the beach with your dog, you know? But yeah, we do have some vets that we work with. So, like, if there's a medical need in tandem, then we can say these are some vets that actually understand these results that you can work with because we don't do the medical side. We're just helping with, here's food suggestions and what
Information.
you're looking at. Yeah.
So you only do minerals or what do you see? I'm sorry. I feel so bad that I've never like done Parsley Pet. I know a lot of the members have. So
Yeah.
please tell me.
Yeah. So it's minerals, heavy metals, and those things and the patterns of those things are indicative of vitamin, amino acid, and hormone activity. So you don't actually have to test all of the other things to get a good idea of what's happening in the body because going back to what we were saying about whole foods, everything works with everything. So like you can say, this pattern is showing that these vitamins are a problem, whether they're toxic or deficient or whatever. So it's technically only testing minerals and heavy metals.
Trisha's saying she ran multiple tests over the past year and Parsley Pet report was the best. So
Oh,
that's
it's awesome.
exciting. Yay. So when you see an abnormal Parsley Pet report, are you like, oh, it's on kibble? Like, can you see it and go, yeah, that kind of matches like every single kibble dog on the planet?
So, um, almost unequivocally, I can open a result and within seconds I can tell you if they're on kibble. But that doesn't mean that DIY or commercial raw are always better. They can be problematic in different ways. So with kibble diets, you see a lot more toxicities and deficiencies. So it's like you'll have a lot of things up here, but then a lot of things down here, and there's not really hardly anything that's in the middle range. So we've found that dogs that are eating synthetic isolates, like 85% of the ingredient panel kibble, they actually are 34% more likely to have nutritional deficiencies than dogs that don't because there's
Because
no
of the excessive toxicity binding and preventing the other absorption of other things.
but also you have a lot of anti-nutrients in grain containing and grain-free kibbles. So the reason that they allow so much of those synthetics in the food is because they know the absorbability is so low. And then each individual nutrient has cofactors and co-nutrients that are required for the body to be able to use it. So you can give a large amount of something and the body's like, well, I don't know what to do with that because it doesn't have any buddies telling me what to do with it. So they just end up with a deficiency despite supplementation. And that's also true with supplements that come in bottles. Like you can use an isolate, say zinc. Body might not use it at all because you're not giving it in a whole food form. So you'd be
But
better
then
off giving muscle.
also, synthetic zinc could cause a disastrous toxicity, which
Mm-hmm.
is
But you don't
terrible.
know with your pet. So that's why it's just safer to avoid it altogether. So yeah, I would say with DIY, the most often we actually see a lot of deficiencies. Um, the majority of people that submit results that do DIY, they're they're either not formulating. The default belief, I think, is if it's fresh, that's good enough. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not good enough. And I like to tell people it's not that it's not good enough. It's that like when we as people go shopping, whether or not we are aware of it, we have cravings, and our cravings will influence what we're buying. We don't give our pets an opportunity to tell us what their cravings are. Like they can't go forage for things. We're not like, here's 15 different fruits and vegetables and meats. Tell me what you're into right now. So that's why formulation is so, so, so important with pets, is because we can't make adjustments based on what they need. So we have to get it right more often than not. So occasionally doing diets where it's like, here's a fish, go chew it, like that's fine, but we have to be meticulous more often, and I don't see that as much with most DIY feeders. And then there are absolutely some commercial foods out there that honestly just should not be on the market.
So I am like you. I run into people all the time. They'll ask me what I do, and I would say I'm an animal naturopath, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm a raw feeder. I make my own dog food." And I'm like, "What do you use for calcium?" And they're like, "What?" And so I
Aw.
want to know what you see common in DIY on your
Mhm.
on your Parsley Pet.
Yeah, so too low fat, I think, is a big one. So that can cause a number of problems. Kind of in tandem with that is not enough vitamin D. That one gets forgotten a lot, and that one is like more important than a lot of the other nutrients, and also more dangerous to supplement if it's not a whole food form. Um, B vitamins are a big problem. Calcium is a big problem, but calcium is actually harder to rank as a dietary contribution when it comes to quantitative HTMA, because it's so, so, so heavily influenced by hormones. So
Wow.
you could give sufficient calcium and still end up with a really bad health problem with toxicity or deficiency that doesn't have anything at all to do with the diet. It's just a hormone thing that's causing an imbalance. So I would
With
say,
and then with the phosphorus, the ratio, like most DIYers don't know that there's a ratio on that, but the hormone factor, that's
mhm.
just scary to me. Like I definitely buy a pre-made raw because even though I studied human nutrition, I still feel like, no, I'm not gonna like do this guesswork juggling thing and cause issues.
And this actually goes back to like, let's look at Mother Nature. So there are a couple of foods that Mother Nature has made where mammals can survive on those things exclusively, primarily raw milk and eggs. So if you're like, you know what, I just am not going to buy a commercial food and I don't care what anybody says, you have a safety factor if you just make sure that you add a minimum of 10% of calories from raw milk and or eggs. Most likely you're going to be covering your bases pretty well with that.
10%'s not that much.
No,
What
I
if you're
think,
doing both?
10 to
Tell,
25%.
tell,
Yeah, that's fine. You,
because
you
I
don't want to
am doing
overdo it with
both.
eggs. Yeah. I mean, if you go over like 3% eggs in a diet, you're probably going to make your pet kind of sick. Like it's usually too rich. So kind of low on the eggs and higher on the milk. And it is really important that the milk is raw. As soon as you heat a milk, it actually degrades lactase, which makes it hard to digest. It degrades alkaline phosphatase, so they don't have access to the calcium anymore. It oxidizes the fats, which can cause pancreatic issues. So it really does need to be a raw milk, but I think, I mean, you can do as much as 100% of the diet as raw milk for their entire life, and it's fine. The longest I personally have worked with a dog that had absolutely nothing but raw milk is 6 years. And that was 6 years from the day the vet told them to euthanize because they couldn't fix it.
So I love this story. And the reason why I love this story is I personally had a client come to me with chronic pancreatitis. There was nothing this dog could eat. And I said, we're going to fast it on raw milk and we're going to let this dog check in with me every single week. And week 1, she's doing better. Week 2, she's doing a lot better. Week 3, she looks like a brand new dog. Week 4, she's acting like a puppy. And she lived for a month on raw milk with no
Mm-hmm.
food. And then she actually lived to 19 and
Mhm.
she died of a accident. She fell in the pool. She was a little bit blind, and the pet sitter didn't see it. And
Oh,
so that was her demise, not cancer, not any chronic illness. She was trotting around at 19.
yep.
So
Yeah, this
thank you
dog.
for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
insane.
This
We
dog was a golden retriever, and it had the opposite actually. It had exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. And the vets had been trying for 3 years to help the dog and got to a point that they just were like, we don't know what to do. And so the owners were like, well, we're not going to euthanize. And the vet was like, well, go see the snake oil lady over there. And so came to me and started the raw milk diet. And when the dog was at like, I don't know, 8 months or a year or something, we were like, you can add some food again. And they were like, nope, this is the only thing that's ever worked. We're not changing it. And that dog just died of old age.
so Chelsea, was it goat's milk, sheep milk, cow's milk, or did you rotate through there?
Just goat milk.
Just nonstop goat's milk.
Mhm. Yep. No
Amazing.
food, no sleep, no supplements, just goat milk. 6 years.
I'm blown. Thank you for
Yeah.
that, because owners get really scared. Like that one owner that we did that dog with, she was terrified. I'm like, milk sustains life. You're good. You're absolutely fine.
Mhm.
Don't fret. And she's like, she's gonna get hungry. She's gonna get mean. She's gonna get this. And she didn't. And every week got better and better. And we were all just like holding our breath, because I'd done it for like a week or something, but I've never done it for a month. But she just kept getting better. So
Mhm.
we just rode the ride, but I'm thrilled to hear that you've done this long term.
Yeah, and I've done it
6 years.
myself for 30 days before, and like the amount of milk that I personally should drink on a goat milk diet is a gallon a day. It is an effort to drink more than a half gallon a day. Like I am too full to do it. And, for people that are afraid to do it, just again, remember like this is what nature made for infants to have exclusively during the most demanding period of life. So dogs actually double their body weight in the first week of life on nothing but milk. So for anybody that's like, well, you can't do that, they're going to lose weight and all this, like just think about an infant. Like, you wouldn't be like, well, I have to give it food. That is food.
So I noticed with my dog, this foster dog that I have here, is if I give him too much raw goat's milk, he gets chalky stool. So he gets like white chalky stool. Is that because of the goat's milk? I was assuming it was the calcium content between the combined issue, but when I back off the goat's milk, it seems to normalize a little bit. Am I doing something
Mhm.
wrong there?
I would guess that he probably has some kind of hormone influence that's messing up his calcium metabolism because it's not too high calcium in and of itself, but in an individual that has a metabolic calcium issue, then it could be dumping the calcium. Hmm.
So interesting, because he, being a foster dog, he was a homeless encampment dog, and the rescue that picked him up had him castrated at 6 months when they got him, and he had some deficits. And his x-rays, his bones are tiny compared to his size of his body. So I think you're absolutely dead on.
It'd be interesting to see his strontium levels too. If he happened to have high strontium, then that could be displacing calcium and causing that problem as well.
Girl, I love this. I love how geeky you are.
Yep.
Now I have to do this test. He was a homeless encampment dog in Stockton, California, and that's a port city that is like bringing all that crap in. It's such a different city, and their team mascot is a nuclear creature, because they joke about the water being nuclear.
Yeah.
So I know now I got to do this Parsley Pet. Okay. Are you offering a Black Friday deal, girl?
Yeah, we can do that. let's see, we can just do, let's make a code. I'll have Angela do this. So nobody do this until like an hour after this is over because I need her to make the code. But let's do Poppy 25 can be your code for a discount.
I love that.
We'll make a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Right on. I love it. Okay, you
Yeah.
guys, I'm gonna quit like hogging all the questions. I'm gonna open it to everyone, unless you want to keep talking, Chelsea, about all sorts of like, girl, there's no end to
I'm
this.
open for whatever.
Do you guys want to hop in there and ask questions, or do you want to just keep listening to the brainiac here? Any hands up? Throw your hands up if you have some questions.
I'm blown away about what she's talking about. So I don't even know if I have like Poppy, have I ever been speechless?
I know, I'm so thrilled.
We did do goat's milk for our guy when he was diagnosed with IBD, and I was told steroids for life, and I said thank you very much. And it was actually Dr. Kingus who said he can live on milk. Like, let's just do that for now because it was the only thing he could stomach.
Literally. Yeah.
It's awesome. He's so
But
great.
I would ask where, like, and full disclosure, it wasn't raw because I couldn't find a good source. Where is there a good source for raw?
Well, Solution
I mean,
Pet
or do I
product.
need goats? I could have goats on the farm, I guess.
Yep, that's an option too. So
So-
Solutions Pet products and Green Juju are the two that like it's the same farms.
Yeah,
So I know for sure that those are good.
thank you.
Trisha's asking, will you have a turkey option?
No, I am not a fan of turkey
I'm not a
because
fan of turkey
turkey-
either. It never feeds good. It never feeds good. What is the story on that?
So for manufacturing, like the fat can be really wonky and cause a lot of problems, and that there's a couple concerns I have with that. But my biggest concern is regular use of high tryptophan foods. Tryptophan actually metabolizes through the tryptophan cycle, so it turns into melatonin, serotonin, all the different things like niacin, niacinamide, it just keeps going. And serotonin in the gut specifically is different than serotonin in the brain. And when you get high serotonin levels in the gut, it actually causes intestinal inflammation. So we're currently looking at doing a duck formula, and we're looking at rabbit, but the sourcing quality of rabbit that we want literally doesn't exist as far as we can tell. So we have to have the farmers grow it from scratch. But duck, I think, is fine. Turkey, in my opinion, it's just too risky because a lot of people don't rotate often enough. So I think it's fine if you're doing a really, really consistent rotation, but I wouldn't want to provide something where people are like, this is the only thing I feed. I'd be like, stop it.
Honey, I'm so happy to hear that. Right on. Thank you. Kathleen, what's your question?
Where do you get a nutritional blueprint test for felines?
Yeah, so I'm not sure who has the ranges for that, but we can do cats. We just charge less for it because we don't have the ranges. But the ratios are actually more important in like what the profile looks like. So whether or not it's in range is not actually fully relevant. So we'll discount it, but we just don't know exactly what the ranges are supposed to be. So we do a number of cats.
So, I mean, it's a hair sample. So if I'm in Canada, you can still send me the report, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we get a lot from like Hong Kong and Singapore and all over the world. So anywhere is fine.
So I'll send you
you can mail it.
I'll send you a cat sample.
Awesome.
And do you do cat food, Chelsea?
Yep. Yeah, it's a very limited ingredient diet for cat food because there's a lot that we just don't think that cats really need. Fecal studies on cats actually show that they eat about 4% grasses and barks and no fruits and vegetables. So the only grasses and barks that are really allowed according to AFCO and therefore state registrations are things that we're like, well, we don't want to put that in there. We're not just going to like grind up sticks and put it in there. So we have our diet that is muscle meat, organ meat, bone, eggs, and raw milk. And then if you have a cat that needs a little extra, then you can use the regulator as some grass and bark combo and just like tiny little sprinkle.
So how come people just don't breed mice and put it into cat food?
I have looked into mice and I cannot find a place that doesn't feed exclusively GMO corn, soy, and wheat.
So now, Chelsea, you can have a mice factory,
You can have a farmer that breeds mice.
a mouse farmer, a mouse wrangler.
Figure
They
out
have
how to
wranglers
trap.
for movies.
Figure out how to trap them, and you'll make $1 million just on that. Like trap them and keep them okay, you know, and for
Wild
harvesting.
harvested mice.
Okay. I mean, my cat goes out and catches her own rats and mice, but I mean, a cat food would be so simple. Just grind up the mouse.
I know. Well, I mean, maybe someday we'll work it out. First, actually, we have tried to get our farmers to grow bugs to feed to the chickens. So
Oh.
that's number one.
That makes sense to keep the
One of our farmers actually makes feed for chickens and cows and stuff, and he does it. He's, to my knowledge, like the only one because he was largely trained by Jacqueline Hill, and so he does not use any synthetics. He actually uses our heavy metal blend as part of the base with like a clay blend that Jacqueline and Roxanne formulated together, and he's super meticulous about his sourcing with everything, and it's mind blowing. So he has actually done a whole bunch of research and like lab stuff, which is so funny because he's Amish. They're so much smarter than people think. But he's done a bunch of labs on the eggs of the chickens that are eating his feed compared to traditional feed that has all the junk in it and synthetics. And the nutrient analysis in his eggs like doesn't even compare to any other eggs, even pastured. Like his is massively better. It's amazing.
Are you
So
going
his
to do?
chickens aren't free range?
Yeah, they're free range,
Oh.
but they still get some supplemental
Oh,
stuff.
they
And
still
so
need bugs,
yeah.
more bugs.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So
herbs and clays and
on eggs, different, just like milk, like throwing out the camel milk because I had done some research on camel milk and I was pretty excited about it. Quail eggs, duck eggs, emu eggs, like have you considered like a range of different eggs?
yeah, so we currently use chicken and duck eggs, and right now we feel like the best value that you're going to get is one from an animal that's happy and is eating well. So just trying to make sure that that's really optimized. At some point, there is a good chance that we'll start selling those kinds of things just individually, like just frozen eggs or chicken feet. We've talked about taking those and like wrapping a SCOBY that is soaked in the substrate for the nutritional yeast so that it has like an umami flavor and more probiotics. So we have a bunch of fun, creative ideas, but we'll see.
That sounds amazing. Any other questions, you guys? My dog says it's time. Oh.
He's
Anybody?
coming out of his shell, Poppy. That's the first time I've seen him put his head that close to the screen. Hi, buddy.
Brody, he was pretty naughty the other night on the animal companion iridology course. Yeah, he was humping me half the time. I was like, oh, the party's like just happening. So yeah, he's been so good about being quiet, but now he wants to be the star of the show. Now he's biting my butt. Stop. Stop. Anybody else want to ask Chelsea any questions, you guys, before we call it a night? Here he is again. I'm trying to keep him away from me. Oh, yes.
He's super cute.
He's the Stockton shelter or the Stockton nuclear radio dog.
I just remember Oh, yeah, when you first brought him home, I just remember him laying on the couch and not interacting. Like the fact that he was on the couch was really telling because your past pup was there too, but he was just so quiet. So I kind of love that he's being a pain, Poppy.
I was gone for the weekend and I had a dog sitter and he peed all over my bed. So
Oh, bud.
I spent the day doing laundry today.
Oh.
Yeah,
Time to find him a home.
he's a little naughty. He needs full time. He doesn't like it when I'm gone. But that's no excuse, right? He gets raw milk and eggs. Come on.
See?
Hey, you guys, Chelsea, this was amazing. You do not disappoint, and I could pick your brain all day long. You are a next level nutritionist. Like
Oh, thank you.
I feel like there's so many animal canine nutritionists out there now, and I worry about it because they don't have what you have. And I don't call myself a canine nutritionist. I'll help people, but I eventually like go, okay, like I'd rather push them your way. Do you do private consultations?
And I am working on like a learning management system and training an AI chatbot so that people can basically ask me without needing me to be on the phone, make myself a little more accessible and hopefully take other people's information and get it all collaborative in there too and try and make more resources so that that information is more readily available for sure.
Okay. That's amazing. A little Chelsea bot.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Yeah.
gonna
Chelsea,
look like you? Is it gonna like have a little headband on and stuff?
I hope that it just has a little smiley face and is really simple.
Chelsea, I'm going to send you a question, but I'm going to messenger it to you. I don't know if I should
Okay.
have it on the recording.
Okay, sounds good.
And you know who Julie Jacobs is?
I do.
Of course I
Yeah.
do. How do you think you sat next to her at the dinner?
I know, exactly. Well, I didn't, it just says Julie on your name. So, yeah. All right, you guys have a great week. Next week, we have a horse neurotherapy expert, Mary Elizabeth Glennon. And so, same time, same place. And we'll see you next week. And Chelsea, you are awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Yep, absolutely.
Bye.
Hi, guys.